Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English and also do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DNB Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found on lifecoachdanamzalai.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 9th episode of season 22, a very special guest and creator of ACE Method, Unleashing Your Best Self and Living the Life You Always Wanted, Dr. Michelle Maidenberg. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Doctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. So I will really quickly, I have a private practice in Harrison, New York. I have a nonprofit called Thru My Eyes, THRU, which offers free clinically guided videotaping for chronically medically ill individuals who want to leave a video legacy for their children and loved ones. I am on faculty at NYU, and I teach a graduate course in mindfulness practice. And then I have 2 books. My latest one is called Ace Your Life, Unleash Your Best Self, and Live the Life You Want. I did do a TED Talk called Circumventing Emotional Avoidance. A Psychology Today blogger. So I have publications that come out, monthly. And then I also have a YouTube channel, which has a new guided meditation every Thursday morning at 11 a.m.
Beautiful. Dr. Michelle, thank you so much for being here on the Happiness
Sure.
podcast. So
Sure.
tell me what really prompted you to write this book about acing your life. I mean, have you gone yourself through some challenging moments where you start questioning your purpose?
Yeah, I think everybody does, right? I hope they do at least. Because, life is full of adversity. We don't get through life without the ups and downs. And I don't care who you are. We each have them. So yeah, I mean, I had a pretty interesting childhood. My parents divorced when I was 3, which is really young. I went to 5 different elementary schools, which is a lot of moving around. There was a lot of discord, again, familial history of substance, abuse use, and I could go on and on. There's been a lot of adversity. But I think that makes me the caring, attentive, engaged therapist that I am, because I really get it. I get people's, adversity. And I feel it. I know it. I feel it. And I've also managed it and worked through it. And I work on myself like I'm a work in progress, just like everybody else is. And I'm not scared to say it. So, and I will continue to work on myself. And it's always a learning process. So, what got me interested in this particular method, and it's predicated on acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. That's what ACE stands for, is really, it's a culmination of the work that I do with the clients that I work with. And I've discovered over time that is the magic. That's where the magic lies to get through any kind of stuckness. It could be interpersonal stuckness. It could be career stuckness. It could be, from A to Z. Habits, being able to sustain habits, so I work with all different people of all different ages, all different socioeconomic status, all different race, religion, and on and on. And it really cuts across culture, race, religion. It's universal. These skills are universal. And I find that it's more of a method. It's a way by which you enter your life and get through stuckness. And it's really, really based on our values, working on our values. And I do have a lot of theoretical frameworks by which, of course, I extrapolate, and I'm, kind of mix in a lot of my own. And a lot of my work is based on, mindfulness. And I do a lot of work around polyvagal theory. And I use a lot around how our minds are wired and our neurocognitive development, which is really important for people to know about. So I add that in my book because I think it's so critical that we understand how we're wired.
Oh, absolutely. But do you use specific modalities such as cognitive behavior or
Yeah.
dialogue or any other
Yeah.
so taught in school, but yet people don't understand exactly the purpose, and how do you really make them understand about them changing their negative mindset to be able to eliminate those unwanted behaviors that they have today, and how to be able to focus more into the future? So as a therapist, we always go into the past, present, and future, even though no one can predict it. But by establishing new habits, people can actually increase their chances to living a happier life.
Yes, I agree with everything you said. However, the only thing that I'm going to say about that is because foundationally, I have a lot of advanced training in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and CBT is basically the nuance with CBT is, our thoughts affect our feelings, which then affect our behavior. Okay, but there's a lot of, again, rhetoric, I'll call it, on social media and otherwise about changing our thoughts and feelings. And, if you're a mindfulness practitioner, it's not really about that. It's really about being with, accepting, learning how to manage, right? Because we can't change our thoughts and feelings. The only thing we can actually change is our behavior. Our thoughts and feelings can change in the process. Okay. So I'll give you an example, a personal example. I'm in a relationship currently, and I find because of my history, I've always been in a very protective, defensive stance and posture because I've had to. And that's what helped me survive. And that's actually helped me become the successful person that I am. Okay. So it's worked for me. So tell my brain to kind of, lay off and give up on that. Sure. It's going to say, no, it's a reptilian brain. And it's going to say, no, I need to do this for you because I have to protect you. And it takes its job very seriously. So as much as I want to just be, noticing the positive about a person and just be like in the moment, my brain is not wired that. My neural pathways are not wired that way. My neural pathways are to protect at every moment from all perceived dangers. And dangers could be rejection, danger could be whatever the perception of danger is to my brain. So I actually, because I'm in, I tend to be, my brain tends to be in such a defensive stance, I have to make an effort, a concerted effort to think about the positive, to think about things that make me happy, content, satisfied, because that doesn't naturally come to my brain. And literally the practice that I've been doing lately, and again, it's not to change my thoughts, but it's to make room for other things besides negativity, right? So what I do is I actually write down, the person that I'm kind of speaking of, I write down the actions the person takes and the connection that we have that actually feed me. And yes, because when my brain forgets, I always could look at that piece of paper and I could say, oh yeah, I forgot. There are those things too. I don't have to protect myself. I'm not protecting myself. And even if I get hurt and rejected and all those things that happen in life, that's okay. Guess what? Because I could survive, because I've gotten through an immense amount of adversity in my life, and I'm going to be okay no matter what. So it's really about the confidence building. That's really where we're at. It's not about changing the thoughts. It's not about changing the feelings. Any thoughts and feelings are welcome. We all have irrational, mean-spirited thoughts. That doesn't make us an irrational, mean-spirited person. Okay, so I could go on and on about how, right? So I use CBT, but I actually do a lot of ACT work, which is acceptance and commitment therapy, which is more of a mindfulness-based CBT. I also integrate a lot of mindfulness. I also use, structural family therapy. I use polyvagal therapy. I'm actually also certified in EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which helps again with stuckness and again more in our, I do a lot of inner child work. And I also have a specialty in team CBT, which is based on David Byrne's work, which again is more strategic. That's more of a strategic work. And again, my goal, because I really, really want to learn more about, I do the work anyway, but again, I want more formal training in IFS, which is internal family systems. That's my next, that's my next venture.
Now, do you feel that if you look at the laws of attraction, Michelle, do you feel like when the author mentioned about thoughts become the things, is that something similar to what you're saying? Because thoughts will only become things if you put action and belief behind it. So in your practice of mindfulness, etc., do you feel that what's going on in between those negative thoughts that people have and the action that they put in their lives, do you feel that there's some ingredient or something missing in between that people cannot grasp, and this is why they're stuck? This is why they
Well,
make that trend.
Yeah. So I think what you're talking about when we talk about neurocognition is these neural pathways. Okay. And we develop these neural pathways when we're little, really little. Okay. And there are scripts, there are narratives, and the propensity is to always repeat. Okay. Because it is familiar and it's comfortable. And our brain likes to take the path of least resistance. Our brain doesn't like to work hard. So, what it knows and what it's familiar with, it's going to take that path. Okay, so when we want to change our behaviors, we're up against a lot. I do want to see that. You know, there's this cognitive structure that we're working up against. So in my book, for example, when I talk about acceptance, compassion, empowerment, I had to start off with each part talking about the barriers. And I spent a whole chapter with each of them talking about the barriers that get in the way of our acceptance, get in the way of our compassion, get in the way of our empowerment. Because if we're not aware of that, we're not going to be conscious so that we can actually have long sustained behavior over time. So we're working up against our neural pathways. We're working against our genetics. We're working against social culturally, how, again, we were raised and born. We're up against so much. I mean, look what's going on in the world today. Do I need to say more? I mean, I'm not going to even get into that because that will be here all day. But like, people are so dysregulated. There's so much going on that's making us feel so, unstable and lacking groundedness, etc. It's just so there's so many barriers, and we need to understand that in order to change those patterns of behavior. So yes, we could make changes, but it takes effort. It takes time. I say to people, even like if you think about an athlete,
Mhm.
you know, like they are so talented, right? And they have skills. But do they say, oh, I got this. I don't need to practice. No, they're freaking practicing 5 hours a day. Now, they don't just say, I don't need to do this because I am so skilled and I have the talent. No matter what you want to do, you have to put effort into it and it has to be purposeful. But talking about building up the self confidence, that's where the magic is. If you don't have a sense of self efficacy, self love, self compassion, you're not going to be doing what proves your worthiness and what proves your wholeness. You're going to work counter. And also, it's a self fulfilling prophecy. If we believe things about ourselves, we're going to actually act in line with that behavior to prove that that's the way we are. And it's always going to be back to the pattern and familiarity of what we know. Always. It's always going to follow that route.
So do you think that the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting results, do you feel that those different or doing the same thing is a sign of being familiar with your actions and belief? And but yet, doesn't the brain start processing this information about saying, well, hold on, we've been doing the same thing and it never really renders the result that we expected. We always go back to failure. And then this self-fulfilling prophecy that you talked about the failure coming back and all. So then the brain is start to adapt a belief that is, whatever I do, I'm going to fail. So how do we change this pattern of being of not really focusing too much on being comfortable, but trying something new, trying tweaking a few things here and there, and then try to see exactly what works and what doesn't. But the fear of failure is what brings people to avoid getting out of their comfort zone. So the changes that are imminent, they're afraid to be able to jump into it.
Yeah, it's a lot more than fear of failure. There's so many, it depends on the person. There's so many barriers, and everyone's different. Everyone's different. Sometimes there's layers and layers and layers. I know for myself, again, I'll call back to me, but like I recognize what the barrier is, and every time it happens, it's like, oh, I slipped into that again. And as much as I'm conscious of it, and it tends to be, I realize I didn't realize how much I repressed.
Mhm.
Yeah, I kind of numbed out. And the other thing, I didn't realize how insecure I was because I'm a very high functioning person, and I get accolades all the time about my performance and who I am and how I am. And people always say, you have like amazing energy. And, like people always say, wonderful. Oh, they say to me, how do you do so much? Again, what ends up happening is if I don't do so much, am I going to be liked? am I going to be cared about? Are people going to pay attention to me? Right? Then you become insecure. You don't realize that that becomes all of you. And what are you without that? There's so many pieces to this. I could go on and on. So what you're actually talking about is people not living in their conscious awareness. That's what you're talking about. Because the way when I was listening to you speak, which was beautiful, it sounds so intellectualized. And that's the problem. We can't intellectualize this stuff. It's actually in our deep level of our subconscious and our unconscious. So we're not even aware of it. Like when you speak about it, it's like, oh, wouldn't you like know that if you're repeating behavior and you're getting the same result, that you should stop the behavior or like, right, amend the behavior or edit the behavior. That sounds great. But how many books are there out right now on changing habits? Like that's kind of very trendy right now. Why is that? Why is that? Because if that's the case and we know it doesn't work for us, and if it was just about changing the behavior, why do we need so many books? Why is it so hard to sustain behavior over time? That is the point. I do workshops all the time, and I ask people, how many of you have changed your behavior? And I usually, like if I'm talking about health or wellness, and everybody raises their hands. And then I'm like, how many of you has sustained it over time? All the hands go down. Literally. I mean, it's astonishing. And I say, what gets in the way of that? Right. And everybody has another reason why, and it's a lot of rationalizations and avoidance, like you said. And I came up with 30 different rationalizations that we come up with based on why we don't facilitate certain behaviors. And it happens all the time. And you know what else? People argue with me. Literally, I say, how long did it take from when you thought about it till you did it? Whatever it is, right? Eat the, 3 pieces of cake or whatever. And they'll say to me, I didn't think about it. There was no thought. I just did it. Before I knew it, it was in my mouth. I didn't think about it. I felt so guilty. I was so horrified. And I'm like, really? Let's slow you down a little bit. Really? Like you didn't have the thought, oh, maybe I don't need this. I had like a really large dinner, or, tomorrow I'll work out double, or, like I had a really hard day. I deserve this, or whatever. And they're like, yeah, I kind of did have those thoughts. Okay, what'd you do about it? Well, I kind of ignored them because it was uncomfortable and I didn't really want to face it. Oh, right. And they'll be like, yeah, I guess I did have thoughts.
So then, okay, if we look at human nature, Dr. Michelle, do you feel that despite the fact, so look, if we look at example about diets, which, you look at all those fat diets, the keto one, the Atkins, etc., you really focus on a very important point, which is sustainability. How to sustain this diet. Yes, in the beginning, you may lose the weight, but the body is very smart. It's after a while, it's going to get acquainted to that diet, and you're no longer going to lose the weight. So you're going to have to tweak it a little bit. And because people don't know how to
step it up, or step it up.
Exactly. And because they don't know and they don't understand the dynamics of it, they fail in doing what's really important, which is stepping it up or changing the way that you eat, when you eat the food, how you eat it, etc. So, but people are not disciplined enough, which is human nature. And you talk about procrastination, etc. But
I don't believe in the word motivation, discipline. I actually don't, because we gain motivation from doing. We don't have to have motivation. People say, I'll do it when I'm motivated to. No, motivation comes from doing. That feeds the confidence, and that feeds our oxytocin and all of our neurotransmitters to want to do it again. It's very biological. We don't realize it. It's very, very biological. We need to understand our bodies and how it works. Okay, there's this urge and a surge of neurotransmitters that happen that actually compel us to want to do behaviors that make us feel good. There's actually something that goes on in our bodies. So it's so complex, and we have to understand the different dimensions of it. Like when you talk about diets and everything, people tend, and we know this is like based on research, people who go on diets tend to gain the weight back and more. That's actually a fact. Diets don't work. So, and people always say to me, because I happen to be like, talk about discipline. I'm probably the most disciplined person. I mean, I am. I'm the most disciplined person I know. And people are astonished when they go out with me, like for dinner or whatever. They're like, oh my goodness, because I am a clean eater. Like I go for my lipid results every year. My doctor literally, he forgets he tells me, but he's like, oh my goodness, like you're superhuman. I've never seen lipid results like these. And I'm always proud of it. And I work out 6 days a week religiously for the past 30 years. Like I am a diehard, but I do it because it makes me feel good. And I do it because one of my core values is sustaining my life, and living a meaningful life, and a thriving life. I want to see grandchildren. Like I want to be on this planet, and I will not go down with, as long as I can help it, with any health issues, because that's just not how I want to be living. And that's because I care about myself. And I think that I'm worth being on this planet,
Yeah.
and it all comes from this confidence place. So when somebody says to me, how are you so disciplined? Like I go out to dinner, this is kind of funny. And everybody's ordering, like, right, they have a dessert menu and everybody's ordering all these desserts. And then I ask them, oh, do you have any just fruits? And they'll say, well, we don't have it on the menu, but we could kind of put together a bunch of berries or whatever. Anyway, they're serving the desserts and they come out with this beautiful like cup of berries. And people turn to me inevitably, how did you get that? I didn't know they have that. I would have gone that too.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's like, because you didn't ask. All right. You got to ask. You got to like go out of your comfort zone, but that doesn't mean, and I show them, I go, do you see a vein or do you see like that says discipline on it that's different than yours? No, it's because I live my life according to my values and I connect with my self-efficacy and my self-love. And that is what propels my behavior. That is what it is.
But do you feel because what the type of adversities that you faced in the past, Michelle, do you feel that this actually continued on into your adult life and you feel more prone to be able to prove to yourself that you're more than just who you were then and what you can do now? Because again, everyone will live a different life. Like I'm sure that the listeners now, they're going to say, well, look at Dr. Michelle, Dr. Dan, who have gone through themselves adversities and they still face challenges. They are educated. Who am I to be able to make the change that I need to do to be able to reach the goals that I set myself to reach? So again, people have the tendency to compare as to what others do.
That's another barrier. Comparison is another barrier. That's another rationalizations, and that's a reason for avoidance. We do all different things. That's just another example. It's like there's the barrier. Yeah, hi, brain. It doesn't matter what it is. I teach these skills to people of all different ages. I teach these skills to people who have different professions, are in a different phase of life. I mean, I can't literally, I've seen transformations that are absolutely like it puts tears in my eyes. I cannot even tell you. I have such amazing examples of people I work with over time. And when they finally, I had this woman I'm working with, and she was very remote from her wellness, and I said to her, do you think people are worthy? Do you think people by nature are deserving? And she goes, of course. What do you mean? And I said, well, you're not acting that way on behalf of yourself.
Mhm.
Like, what's that about? Why is it okay for everybody else, but not you? And she looked at me and she had tears rolling down her eyes, and finally she's gone to a place where she has enveloped and internalized the skills and what we're working on. She is like, again, she's finally sustaining a healthy lifestyle. And she talks about herself. She said to me, she said, I decided that I'm worth it. And she was, she was tearful when she said it. She was like, I finally get what you're saying. I finally connect to it.
Mhm.
And she said, it feels so good. It feels so good. I wake up every morning and I'm excited to wake up.
Was she the type of person that tried to get validation from others and that's what she focused
Oh,
on?
yeah. Oh, I mean, it's so complex because she also has a history, kind of trauma and other things. So, yeah, it's kind of multifaceted. Sorry about the phone.
Yeah.
But she had a lot of, formative kind of childhood history of trauma. Yeah, I mean, complicated. But again, I see people walk in and I look at them and I'm like, wow, you're amazing. And you know that how they see themselves? It's
Different.
like there's such a disconnect. I'm like, are we looking at the same person? Like seriously? Because we're both like, yeah. Or when I say to them, you're amazing. And like, I look at you and yeah. And they say, they can't even believe I'm saying that. They're like, that's the first time I ever heard that.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you say this, Michelle, because when I was young, actually, I dealt with morbid obesity because I was dealing with the hypothyroidism issue. And of course, that slows down the metabolism. So everything that you eat end up in fat. So the
Yeah.
thing that despite that, the doctors were having a lot of difficulty to level my TSH in my body. And that in return was always causing me to always gain more and more weight. So
Mm,
feared about me becoming like a 400 or 500 pounder or appearing on the TV show My 600 Pound Life. So
mm,
basically kind of only always fed me vegetables and vegetables, and that's about it. And then I went into bodybuilding. So that was a way for me to externalize myself, to be able to say, you know what, I think I can beat this. But
mm.
I had that mindset, the thought had to come before the action. So when you were talking about discipline or motivated, you have to be motivated for a goal that you set yourself to reach. But the thing is, the motivation cannot come if you have not yet thought about what you want to do. So that what motivated me is that I want to be healthier. Like you are a fanatic about health. So, but I had to have a thought coming behind. But if the
So
thought,
that's a so what you're talking about and what I'm talking about is the same, except I couch it in values.
okay,
Yeah. So, and that's my work is really around values. So, in my book, again, like the first chapter talks about our neurocognition and our bodies. And then the second chapter talks about our values.
okay,
We'll sustain behavior and we'll connect to our best self if we connect to our values. If the behavior, we don't guide our behavior based on our thoughts and feelings, but rather than our values.
okay,
So you connected to a value, and that is what motivated you, right? Initially. And then the behavior in and of itself, after doing it, and you felt better and you saw a change in your health, again, that continually motivated you. But it started out with connecting to a core value of yours. It always connects to that. And again, you may say to me, oh, I know what my values are. So does everybody. No, no. Yeah, it's amazing. People are very, very remote from their values. And when I do values review with individuals and I do these exercises with them, they're astonished. And I could tell you, I do a values evaluation every night before I go to sleep.
interesting.
And that changed my life dramatically. Yeah.
So where can people find your book or your books?
So it's on Amazon, all the local, yeah, Barnes and Noble, all the best place to reach me is on my website. It's my full name, which is Michelle with two L's, and Maidenberg is Maidenberg, MichelleMaidenberg.com. It has all my blogs, it has a lot of resources, again, tabs to a quiz that I put together to actually identify where your stuckness is. And I'm always happy to interact with others. And I really, I just really want to help others. That's my mission in life.
We're both on psychology today, so I'm going to look for
Oh,
your
good.
for your articles as well. And on that
Yeah.
note, Michelle, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. I'm very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 22 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories, just like the one that you listened today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Live the life you always dreamed of by embracing your passion and following your heart. Take bold steps towards your goals, no matter how daunting they may seem. Surround yourself with positivity and people who uplift you. Trust in your abilities and never stop learning. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small they are. Stay resilient in the face of challenges and keep your vision clear. Believe in yourself and make every day a step closer to your dreams. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.